Welcome back. This is Joel Toppin here. I've been doing a couple videos on Storm over Asia. It's one of the prequel games to A World at War. It is a game in and of its own right. If you just have this game, it is a game you can play it. You don't have to have A World at War. You don't have to have Gathering Storm. The rulebook asserts that this is the easier of the two prequel games to learn how to play. If that's the case, then my hat's off to all of you that learned the Gathering Storm. I'm just going to say that. So the point of these videos is really just kind of show, because there are no examples of play in the box. It comes with the game. I thought I'd show you some examples of how I think the game is supposed to work based on my interpretation of the rulebook. So we've gone through most of the phases of the turn. If you look at the sequence of play, we see there's a random event phase, an income phase, economic phase, diplomatic phase. We have covered all that in the previous two videos, so if you haven't seen those, you can check that out. We're going to pick things up here at the combat phase. Now, I will say this about United Front. There are 3 occasions in the game turn when United Front determination is made, and its effects are then imposed. That would be right after, or right before, I should say, the income phase takes place. The end of the random events, you'll find at the very end of diplomatic phase and at the very end of combat. You'll recall from earlier videos, there is no United Front right now. You have to have a surplus of at least 1 in the plus. The number of positive markers have to exceed the number of negative markers by at least 1 in order for you to have that. So that does not exist right now, and in fact, Central China, I'm trying to remember why that mark. Oh, we had to remove that marker. That's why. That marker gets sent back to the holding box. And yep, it just went to the wrong place. Okay, the Chinese have lost control of Central China because of the Warlords card here. It put a new Warlord marker in there, and so they don't have a surplus of nationalist flags. Therefore, nobody controls China at the moment. So all the diplomacy is done. We took away all the activity counters. Should have put this one back. So let me unhide it and return that to his hand. Checking the map, make sure I did put them all away. Okay, they're all put away. Now I'm going to leave the military counter we use for diplomacy out there because you can use this for combat. The Japanese player can use this for combat if they want. If they were to do that, however, they do have to spend a tile point to basically double dip and use it for combat in the same reason you used it for diplomacy. We're not going to do that right now. We're actually just going to make 1 attack, and I'm not saying this is necessarily the best move. Kind of back and forth on how aggressive to be in China early on. I see pros and cons to it, but we're going to go ahead and use their military counter here to attack northern China. Now, what is the purpose of the numbers in the military counters? Good question. I think it's only for diplomacy. It would be great if the rulebook actually, spelled that out, but my parsing of it, I couldn't really identify what the number there means. I think the value is only important for diplomacy. In combat, the military counters, and this is where the game really could use a play aid for combat because there's an entire page full of modifiers that can affect combat that they didn't see fit to make a play aid for because, people wouldn't remember an entire page of content. Anyways, I'm going to nitpick at this rule book because I kind of feel like these guys have a really good game and they could have a much better rule book. So there's a really good game buried in some very poor presentation here. So here's what we got. We're going to make an attack on northern China. And the military counter here is going to have a modifier of 2. This is going to give a modifier of 2 to Japan in their attack on northern China. Now, each province of China has a number in a blue box, a white number in blue box, and that's the defensive modifier for that region. So northern China is going to have a modifier of -2, central China 2, Shanghai only 1, Eastern China 2, South China Coast only 1. You'd think those would be easier, to go and attack first, but I'll show you some reasons why that might not be so. Southern China 2, Yunnan and Sichuan and Shenxi are having a modifier of 3 in each of those locations. So my understanding of this is the military counters for Japan have a value of 2. So Japanese Army counters, I should say. Japanese Navy counters have a modifier. This is data you could put on this big Herkin tile. I don't understand why. You got, this tile is 1 inch wide and 1.25 inches high. You couldn't put a number up. You couldn't, split this. Cringy. You have a really good game here. Work at it. So this has got a value of +2. The Japanese are going to attack this. The Chinese do have a military counter of their own. Let's just throw that in there because why not? Doesn't hurt to use it. If Japan conquers this region, you're going to lose that tile anyways. My understanding anyway is that you would lose that anyway. So you might as well use it. So China's going to get a modifier of 1 for their military counter. So Chinese military counters are worth 1. Japanese Army, Russian military counters are worth 2. Other modifiers that will apply. If you have 1 or 2 flags of your own in the region that you're attacking, you get a modifier of +1. If you have 3 or 4 flags, you get a modifier of +2. So Japan is going to have a modifier of 1 because they have 1 flag there. The nationalists have no flags. The warlords don't help anybody. So right now, the Japanese have collectively a modifier of +2 for their counter, +3 for their flags, and the Chinese have -2 for the defensive properties of the region and -1 for their military counters. So they're both at even Steven right now. Next thing we're going to check is, do we have any cards that can help us out? Let's check our hand here. We're going to go ahead and discard the random event that the Japanese used and reveal that they had to make this attack. So this is the time at which they have to play this. Otherwise, they would have lost 2 support. So we play that card, but it doesn't actually help them in this combat situation. So we're going to go ahead and discard that. There's no net effect. But if there was an effect, we would apply that now. Next thing, great big region of Manchukuo, Manchuria, if you will. And you'd think that there would be like a, +2, some kind of notation show that this gives a +2 value if you're attacking the neighboring region of northern China. But they didn't see fit to put that anywhere but on page who knows what, because there's no page numbers in the rule book, buried with all of the other military counters, die roll modifiers. So this is all a wash here. Japan's going to get +2 for Manchuria. So now they're sitting at +2. Any more modifiers? Adjacent regions. Shenxi and Central China are both adjacent to Northern China, but there's only 2 nationalist flags. If they had 3 or 4 national flags combined between the 2 provinces adjacent to this, that would give them a modifier of 1 in their favor. If they had, actually that's all you can get there. Yeah, +1 modifier if you have 3 or 4 flags. So if you had a unified front, if the number of positive unified markers was a surplus, if there was at least 2 more positive markers than negative markers, you could put these very cool, we find them here, they're in with the miscellaneous united front. You could have led 2 united front tokens down after diplomacy, thinking, hey, he might be attacking northern China. That would shore up the defense because these would be counted as nationalist counters temporarily so long as the unified front exists. So we don't have that now, and so that's not going to help. So basically, that's all the modifiers we're going to have. Just a net +2 in Japan's favor. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to draw random tiles. So we'll open up the tiles display, and we're just going to drag it onto the map. I don't have a fancy schmancy way to do this at current time, but we're going to... Ooh. Well, China's going to lose this one. So the question is how bad they're going to lose this one. Well, not as bad as they could have. If they'd drawn a 1, that would be the worst possible case scenario. Okay, so the tile value of 3 added to the net value of +2 for Manchuria and that's a +5 in Japan's favor, -2 for the tile that China drew. So it's a net of +3. That's the differential in the victory in this battle. So having a differential of 3 gives you 3 diplomatic results in the region. So here's what we can do. We can actually take out, you know what? I think what I'll do is just actually place 3 flags. So let's just temporarily move him out of the way. And we'll clone that twice. So we're going to do diplomacy. Success 1, place an initial flag. 2, place another flag. 3, get rid of the warlords. There you go. And that will give you the trade pack. So we'll send that over to Japan. And that's going to help their income a little bit more. So there you go. And then we'll go ahead and return these back to the supply. And these guys get returned back to their hand windows. And that will conclude combat. That's how combat works. Oh, one more thing we got to do. And with the game, this game is really not all that complex. There's just lots of little details that you need to remember. It would be great if there's just a list of some procedures to remember when you do some of these things, rather than this exhaustive encyclopedia of a rule book. So what I'm going to do now is place a marker here. It shows that combat took place between the nationalists and the Japanese. Doesn't matter who attacked who. The Chinese can attack on their own to try to eliminate flags in Japanese areas or areas where there are Japanese flags. They can do that on their own. And one of the benefits of that is it does help to establish the unified front. Now, we also, I think, now have taken control of northern China. So we're going to go ahead and drag this over and this over. And so we almost have a unified front right now. And the, whoops, that's the wrong marker. What did I just do? I pulled out the wrong one. Let's put him back. Central China, what did I do here? Oh yeah, Central China we do not control, it's Southern China. All right, so that actually hurts them there. Japanese control of the regions or communist control hurts their cohesion, which hurts their support, but it does help on the unified front end of things. So I just want to confirm I put all the markers back where they're supposed to be. Yes, excellent. And so that's basically the end of the turn. We'll return this guy back to his hand window. And then here's what we're going to do, because we can't draw the same Purge, Warlord, or Japanese random event category card 2 turns in a row. So what I recommend you do is leave them in the discard pile, wherever that happens to be. So we'll discard him. We'll discard him. We'll discard him. So all the cards get discarded from the map, wherever they happen to be. Go ahead and take care of those, and then leave those cards discarded, and then the next turn, when you go ahead and draw your new cards, as soon as you draw your new cards, immediately go ahead and drag that card over to the draw deck and it shuffles in automatically. That will basically allow you to do what the game will cause you to do in a physical copy. So that's how that works. That's combat for you. You're going to see combat take place mostly up in this area as the Chinese lose their grip on the coastlands of their own country. You're also going to find the Soviets are going to need to make some moves against Japan. They can combat each other here in Manchuria. How that works is when the Russians get control of military counters, it costs 2 action points or action tiles and 2 tile points, obviously, to purchase a military counter. And then for each one that you purchase, it improves your cohesion, but it degrades your income because you have to pay maintenance of -1 for every one of those. But you can use those, once you have those in your hand, each of those has a combat value of 2. You can use it to attack one another in Manchuria. That can disrupt Japanese plans. They might have to withhold their military counters just in case the Russians are going to attack. There's definitely some shadow boxing that can happen there. Victory in this area, that what effect it imposes is it costs the loser tile points. So and also it helps the Russians victory points. The number of times they get successes militarily against Japan in these border clashes, at the end of the game that adds up and gives them points, which then offsets the victory differential that the Japanese are going to have at the end of the game. The Allies, let's say one last thing about the game. The Allies win collectively is my understanding. And so if you have 4 players playing this game, one player playing the nationalists, one with the UK, one with the Russians. They're all going to have to work together in order to make this a success against Japan. It's probably not going to be as interesting playing the UK as China because there's less to do until the Japanese aggression index goes up. And then the contest widens as Southeast Asia becomes a target of Japanese diplomacy, and then the UK responding to that. How does the Japanese aggression index go up? Let me just say that about conquest. Once you get 5 Japanese tokens, like say the situation was like this and they get 2 more successes in a combat, they place 2 more flags, that would be a conquest of northern China. That's a permanent condition then. They then would have to garrison that region with a military counter. It can either be a Navy one because it's a coastal region. You can use your Navy to garrison it, or you can use a military counter. Of course, that's going to impact your ability to do more aggression, so it ties down your troops. So you'll see that China is going to be too big for Japan to swallow, but they're still going to try to do it. And so conquest, as soon as you conquer a region, then there are going to be Japanese aggression index modifiers for that. So if they conquer northern China, you put a JAI +1 marker here down, and that shows that the JAI is now at 1, and now Southeast Asia is open for business. That's going to have all kinds of ripple effects on ship construction. There's all kinds of things that are going to be impacted by the JAI. So if you look at your displays, just look for anything that talks about the JAI. Pay attention to that. On the Chinese cohesion, yeah, JAI is going to help bring their country together. As Japan gets more aggressive, that'll help their cohesion take shape. It can also help with the unified front. It also will galvanize, I believe, yes, both the Britain in terms of their cohesion and therefore their support, and also it'll galvanize the cohesion of the Russians. And that's it. That is Storm Over Asia in 3 video sessions. There's a whole lot more to it, but I hope that if you watch these videos, and I apologize for my snarky comments about the rulebook. The rulebook, if you need to look something up, you're probably going to be able to find it because it's laid out like an outline with a reasonably good table of contents. I suggest you go to their website and get the PDF so you can search it. That will help you a lot. Understanding the content of the rulebook will really help once you see it working in action. Then you'll have a picture in mind, I think, to make better sense of what the rules are trying to communicate. I really think everything is there in the rulebook. It just would really help if the designers had provided some more play aids for us to help us actually play the game and maybe give us a playbook with some examples of play. Some things that you will not find in the rulebook are going to be found in the battle book. They do make an effort to explain all the counters, and while it's not complete, it is very helpful. You really should familiarize yourself with that. There is a play aid that will help you set up the game, and I think without that card, I don't think I ever would have gotten this far in the game. So kudos to the designers for including that, because I would have been lost otherwise. Everything to set up the game is found somewhere in the rulebook, but not in one consolidated place, except for that 8.5 by 11 cardstock sheet of content that you have in your game. That will show you where everything goes. So make sure you consult that. Make sure you look at, if you run into a question about random events, you're probably not going to find the answer in the rules. Double check the rules on random events. It might be covered there, but more if you have a specific issue, check out the back half of the battle book, and it will give you some ways to make better sense of some of the ambiguities you can run into on a random event. The cards are kind of laid out there. Again, not quite as comprehensively as we might like, but I've been able to find every answer I needed regarding cards in that battle book. I haven't run into a situation I couldn't resolve on my own by consulting the battle book. So there you go. This is Storm Over Asia, final video. Hope you enjoyed these. Appreciate you if you subscribe to my channel. We like to have more content coming your way real soon. Take care. I'll have a wonderful day.